He wanted the cameras to capture my breakdown. Instead, they captured his confession. It started with an email he left open by accident. I wasn't snooping. I was just grabbing my charger from his office when I saw the subject line, Heart Reset, Casting Confirmation. My stomach dropped like it knew something before my brain could even catch up. I clicked it, watched every word burn through the hope I'd been clinging to for years. He had already applied to a reality show for couples on the brink, without telling me, without asking. He called it an opportunity, said it'd be good for us, but what kind of man signs his marriage over to Netflix for ratings? A man who's already writing the script where he comes out looking like the victim. When I asked him why he didn't tell me, he smiled. That smug, infuriating smile I used to mistake for charm. Because I knew you'd overthink it, he said. You always ruin things before they even begin. Classic Liam. He never argued. He just reworded betrayal to sound like concern. And then he handed me the release forms, just like that. Like I was signing up for a weekend spa getaway. It's just paperwork, he said. Nothing serious. But I could see the glint in his eye. He was already performing. Already crafting his redemption arc. And I was supposed to be the angry, bitter wife he miraculously saves himself from. So I signed. Smiled. Kissed him on the cheek. But while he poured a drink to celebrate, I was already scanning the contract in the hallway, top to bottom. Every clause, every right, every loophole. Because if this was going to be a game, I wasn't going to play blind. There it was. Clause 9C. The production reserves the right to air any footage, including off-camera conversations, if deemed essential, to narrative truth. And further down, 12A. All cast members waive the right to preview edits prior to release. He didn't read it. I did. That night, I lay next to him in bed while he watched highlight reels of past seasons. He laughed at the breakdowns, called the crying women dramatic, said men always come out stronger on shows like these. Because they're not afraid to admit when they've been hurt, he whispered. My skin crawled. I started saving. Voicemails, screenshots, messages he thought he deleted. Because deep down, I already knew what this was. Not a rescue mission, but an ambush. And I refused to let him dictate the narrative. The next morning, he made us matching smoothies and suggested outfits that made us look like we were in love but trying. I asked if we could just talk, off camera first. He shook his head. Let the experts handle it. We've failed enough. And just like that, I became the villain in his story. The controlling wife. The cold one. The reason he strayed emotionally. That word again. Emotionally. Like he hadn't already stripped pieces of me away in private for years. He thought I wouldn't find out. But I had already seen enough. He lied. I smiled. And the cameras hadn't even started rolling yet. The production team called 2 days later. Filming began in 3 weeks, and I started planning my own script, because this wasn't heartbreak, it was awakening. They say the beginning always feels like a dream, and with Liam, it did, until I realized dreams can turn into hallucinations. We met at a networking event for creatives in Chicago. He was magnetic, charismatic, the type of guy who made everyone feel like the most important person in the room. When he turned his attention to me, I felt like I'd just been chosen. Like I mattered in a way I hadn't felt in years. He said I had poise. No one had ever used that word for me before. Our first date turned into a weekend. Wine, jazz, endless conversations about ambitions, childhood fears, and what we'd do if we won the lottery. He told me his last relationship ended because she didn't believe in him. That should have been a flag. But I thought I'd be different. I thought I'd believe enough for both of us. We moved fast. He asked me to move in after 4 months. proposed on a rooftop 9 months in. I said yes because he made the world feel less terrifying. He held my hand in crowds, kissed my forehead when I panicked in public. That kind of tenderness is rare, or at least it seemed like it was. In the beginning, he wrote me notes on napkins, left voice messages singing old songs. He'd say, "I never knew love could be this calm." I believed him. I ignored the undercurrent, how he flinched if I disagreed, how he twisted jokes into critiques, how his compliments always came with conditions. Our friends said we were the ideal couple, Instagram-worthy, aspirational. We posted curated dinners, filtered vacations, fake arguments followed by staged reconciliations. Behind the scenes, I was already shrinking. And he was already rewriting our story. We tried therapy once. He spent the whole session blaming my energy. Told the therapist I was too rigid, too anxious, too much. And I believed it. I started adjusting, lowering my voice, apologizing for existing too loudly, because I wanted us to work, because I still thought love meant sacrifice. He rarely raised his voice. Instead, he used silence. Long, punishing silences. Days without affection. And when I finally cracked and asked what was wrong, he'd say, "This is why I need space. You're always pushing." It wasn't arguing. It was gaslighting. I just didn't have the word for it yet. Our intimacy faded slowly. Not with a fight, but with indifference. I'd reach for him, and he'd pull away, say he was tired, overwhelmed. But then he'd post shirtless selfies with cryptic captions like, "Healing comes when you walk alone." And still, I stayed. Because I thought if I just waited, just loved him better, more gently, more quietly, he'd come back. That the version of him I met was still in there, just lost under stress. That's the lie women like me tell ourselves. That abuse in a soft tone isn't abuse at all. I remember the night I started Googling, "Is my husband a narcissist?" My browser history filled with terms like gaslighting, emotional abuse, power imbalance. But I never confronted him. Instead, I closed the tabs and made his favorite dinner. He noticed, of course. Called me a rare one. Said most women would have given up. That was the moment I should have run. But instead, I wore those words like a medal. A girl like me should be grateful, right? He left breadcrumbs of validation and I followed them, like gospel, until the trail led me here, to a show where he wanted to showcase my brokenness. And for the first time, I wasn't scared. I was curious. Because maybe this wasn't about saving us. Maybe this was about exposing him. Reality TV loves a villain. And Liam had spent years grooming me to play that part without even needing a script. From the moment the production team arrived, everything shifted. He became overly affectionate, suddenly kissing my hand in public, pulling me close for no reason. I knew that performance. That wasn't love. That was premeditated damage control. On our first on-camera session, the producer asked what brought us here. Liam didn't miss a beat. She stopped believing in us. Just like that. He weaponized my silence, made my exhaustion sound like betrayal. I stared at the floor and said nothing. Not because I agreed, but because I was calculating. Behind the scenes, he started isolating me. He'd charm the crew, share inside jokes with Clara, the producer, and make me look cold by comparison. Whenever I spoke up, he'd lean in and whisper, "Not now. You're spiraling." In front of everyone. On mic. It wasn't the insults that hurt. It was the plausible deniability. The way he phrased things so gently that if I reacted, I looked insane. Gaslighting, but branded as concern. "I just want you to feel safe." Translation: "Stay quiet so I can shine." He once told the crew that I didn't like to be touched. That intimacy triggered me. That's why we weren't close. He said it with so much faux empathy that the therapist nodded. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Because I had the receipts. And I wasn't done collecting. He played the wounded husband perfectly. Spoke about the miscarriage we had 5 years ago like it had just happened, using my pain to anchor his storyline. I watched his eyes flick toward the cameras after every sentence. He wasn't grieving. He was auditioning. At night, he'd gaslight me off camera. Ask why I wasn't participating enough. Why I looked so stiff on screen. "You're ruining our arc," he said once. Our arc. Like our marriage was a screenplay. Like my real tears were continuity errors. I started noticing the patterns. His compliments always came after criticism. "You look beautiful," when you're not overthinking. "I love you," when you're not being dramatic. Emotional landmines, wrapped in velvet. Every therapy session felt like a trap. He'd bring up my control issues, my tendency to catastrophize. Never mention the times he disappeared for days, to clear his head, or the flirtatious messages I found once and was told to stop digging through his phone like a crazy person. And the crew ate it up. They labeled me guarded, withdrawn, possibly depressed. Liam got more screen time, more solo interviews. He was becoming the sympathetic lead. And I, the moody wife who just couldn't open up. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It buys you time. Time to plan, to gather, to breathe. He thought I was shrinking, but I was studying him, watching how he smiled at Clara, how he lingered too long when the cameras weren't even rolling, how he kept checking his phone after midnight. Every detail I filed away, because something was coming. I didn't know what, yet. But the gut never lies, and mine was screaming. I wasn't just being filmed. I was waiting. For the moment he slipped, he lied. I smiled, because he had no idea I'd been paying attention. It happened on day 14 of filming, the trust exercise episode. We were asked to write anonymous letters to our partners, expressing our rawest truths. Then we'd read them on camera, live in front of each other, no edits, no takebacks. Had written mine with surgical precision. A letter that exposed the loneliness of living with a man who never saw me, who only loved mirrors. But when it was my turn to read, Clara tapped her mic and said, "Actually, production has a surprise." My blood froze. They handed Liam an envelope. This was submitted anonymously through the pre-show confession portal. Clara smiled. "We verified it's legit." Liam laughed, shrugged like it was no big deal, until he opened it. His hands twitched. It was a printed screenshot of a text thread between him and someone named Tessa. A thread that began with, "Last night was unreal," and ended with, "She's checked out emotionally, babe. I'm just playing my part until the show wraps." The silence that followed was volcanic. You could hear the breath leave the room. He blinked fast, fake laughing, scanning for cameras like this was a prank. But no one was laughing. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at him, not with rage, but with clarity. Dr. Ray, the show therapist, tried to step in, asked if this was real. Liam fumbled. "It's out of context." But the messages were clear. Dozens of them. Dates, hotel names, photos. One selfie where Tessa wore his hoodie, in our house. And then he turned to me, eyes wide with panic. "Did you do this?" I tilted my head and said nothing. He begged, "Avery, please. This is sabotage." I stayed calm. Just whispered, "I signed the release, did you?" That was the moment everything changed. The camera zoomed in on his face as the color drained from it. He looked like a man caught in his own net. Clara looked at her monitor, stunned. One of the crew whispered, "Jesus Christ, this is gold." I could have screamed. I could have sobbed. But instead, I just sat there, composed, because this wasn't heartbreak. It was unveiling. He started rambling, blaming the pressure, saying Tessa was just emotional support, that he never slept with her, that I'd pulled away first. Classic blame shifting, classic Liam. But I didn't engage. I let the footage speak. Let the room fill with his voice, his words, his betrayal. He was unraveling, not me. For once, the narrative wasn't his to control. The producers decided to air it, unedited. Clara said it was too raw to cut. The network loved. It called it reality gold. And I sat in my trailer afterward, hands trembling, not from sadness, but from relief. He'd finally exposed himself. And I didn't have to say a word. Later that night, he came to our shared suite. Tried to explain. Said the show was messing with his head. That he loved me. That he was scared. "You know I break under pressure," he whispered. But I didn't respond. I just looked at him. And smiled. Because he thought I wouldn't find out. But I'd known all along. And now the world did too. The days after the reveal blurred into each other like a bad fever dream. Everyone on set walked on eggshells around me like I was fragile glass. But inside, I was fire. Liam avoided me for 48 hours, locked in his suite, claiming emotional distress to the producers. Meanwhile, the crew tiptoed around with hushed voices and sideways glances. Clara asked if I needed a break. I said no. I wasn't breaking. I was processing. Dr. Ray offered me extra sessions. I declined, because I knew exactly what I was feeling. Rage. Pure, crystallized rage. Not just at Liam, but at myself. For staying. For shrinking. For making myself small so he could look big. The internet exploded as soon as the episode aired. Hashtags, reaction videos, DMs from strangers telling me I was so strong, that I was an inspiration. But where were they when I was crying? On a bathroom floor at 2 a.m. while he deleted texts in the next room? He finally tried to talk to me on day 3. Knocked gently on my trailer door like he hadn't just humiliated me in front of millions. "Can we please talk off camera?" he whispered. I opened the door, looked him in the eye, and said, "You wanted reality, right?" He stared at me, stunned. "You're enjoying this," he snapped. "You set me up." And that's when I realized he still didn't get it. He thought this was revenge. He couldn't grasp that this was just exposure. Truth, served cold and clear. "You lied," I said. I smiled. And I shut the door. At night I cried. Not for him, but for the girl I used to be, the one who twisted herself into a version he could love. I mourned her. And I promised myself she wouldn't come back. The other cast members treated me differently now. They offered support, but it felt performative. No one really knew what to say to a woman who had her heart gutted live on camera. So I stayed alone, ordered food to my room, stopped answering messages. My mom called, left a voicemail saying she was proud of me. But she also sounded worried. She didn't understand the emptiness that comes after you stop hoping. Because even in the worst moments before, I'd still had hope. Now, just silence. Liam tried again. Sent flowers. A letter. Said he was in therapy now. That he'd realized how much trauma he carried. That he wanted to make things right. I didn't even read past the first paragraph, because healing doesn't start with PR apologies. I started replaying old moments in my head. Red flags I painted white. Like how he never remembered my birthday without a calendar reminder. How he once told me my laugh was too loud for dinner, parties. How he always talked over me in groups, then called it banter, and the rage sharpened. Not loud, not dramatic, but clean, silent, focused. Because now it wasn't about pain anymore. It was about control. My control. I wasn't sad he cheated. I was done mourning. I was building. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of his fall, and I'd be watching every step. After the exposure aired, something shifted in me. I wasn't content with just the cheating revelation. I needed the full picture, the entire rot beneath the surface. So I went digging. Not emotionally, but strategically. I started with his phone logs, which I still had access to through our shared account. I noticed a pattern: late-night calls, 3 to 4 times a week, all to a number saved under Tony. Liam doesn't have a friend named Tony. I cross-referenced that number with social media using a reverse lookup tool. It wasn't Tony. It was Tessa, the same girl from the text thread, and not only that, she had a private Instagram account linked to a fitness brand Liam once promoted. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was professional. I found Venmo transactions. Dinner. Weekend. For the Airbnb. My chest burned as I scrolled. He'd been funding their little love story with our joint credit card. I screenshotted everything. Documented it. Organized it. Not for revenge. Not yet. But for truth. Then came the emails. Dozens of them, buried deep in a folder labeled MISC. Correspondence between Liam and Clara, the producer. She knew about Tessa, months before filming. I couldn't believe it. They had been strategizing how to use it as a possible twist. If the show needed more fire, that broke something in me. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed that my pain was their plot. My devastation was content. A scheduled event on a storyboard. And Liam had approved it. Signed off on it. Smiled through it. I sent Clara a message. Clause 9C. Remember? She read it. Never responded. But the next day, production suddenly gave me access to the editing bay for transparency. I wasn't stupid. They were afraid of a lawsuit. And I wasn't finished. In the footage archives, I found something even worse. A mic left on after Liam's interview. He was laughing with another producer, saying, "I'm golden either way. If she leaves me, I get sympathy. If she stays, I get redemption." I watched it 10 times. Let it sink in. I also found out he had planned the timing of the show to coincide with a product launch for his self-help podcast. Love Like a Man, a series where he teaches other men how to rebuild after heartbreak. Heartbreak. He scripted. Everything was a performance, even the pain he pretended to feel when the text came out. I remembered how he clutched his chest like it was real, like he was the one breaking. I started compiling everything into a digital folder. I labeled it Narrative Control, because that's what this was always about. Who gets to tell the story? And I wasn't going to let him write the ending. One night I stood outside his trailer. Just stood there, watching his silhouette behind the blinds. He was on the phone. Probably rehearsing another apology for the cameras. I didn't knock. I didn't cry. I just whispered to myself. He thought I wouldn't find out. The truth wasn't just painful. It was fuel. Because now I had everything I needed, not just to expose him, but to flip the entire script. And this time, the audience would be on my side. They thought the season finale would be a reconciliation arc. The producers pushed it hard. One last sit down, no interruptions, just the two of you, heart to heart. But I had other plans. I agreed to the shoot. Wore white, simple makeup. Calm demeanor. Because nothing unsettles a narcissist more than the woman he broke looking radiant and unbothered. Liam showed up in a soft blue sweater, the one that made him look emotionally safe. He tried to hug me. I took a step back and sat down. No smile, no tears, just clarity. The cameras rolled. Clara asked us to reflect on the journey. Liam spoke first, of course. Gave the performance of his life. "This has been the hardest chapter I've ever lived," he said, his voice trembling just enough. "But I've grown, and I owe that growth to her." I let him finish. Let him build the tower of redemption high enough. Then I lit the match. "I think the audience deserves more," I said softly. "More than tears, more than edits. They deserve the truth." Liam blinked, confused. I pulled out a small drive from my pocket, held it up. "This is the full story. Every voicemail, message, backstage strategy, all of it." Clara's voice cracked over the mic. "Avery, this isn't—" But I cut her off. "Clause 9C, narrative truth." She went silent. I looked directly into the lens. He cheated, he lied, he performed, and then he tried to turn my pain into profit. I placed the drive on the table. "This is your real finale," Liam's face contorted. "You're ruining both of us." I laughed, for real this time. "You did that. I'm just rolling credits." Clara tried damage control. "We can't air this without legal—" I raised a brow. "You aired my breakdown. You aired my silence. You will air this, or I release it myself." The tension was thick. Crew members looked at each other, unsure, but then someone clapped. One of the camera guys. Slowly, then another, and another, because they weren't just employees. They were witnesses. Liam stood up, desperate now. "I still love you." I tilted my head. "You love the version of me that made you look good." He reached for my hand. I pulled back. I ended it with one line. One clean, precise line. He left me, but he didn't break me. The producers had no choice. They aired it, uncut. The full confrontation, the flashbacks, the receipts, the fall of a man who built his ego on the ruins of my dignity. The internet erupted. Support flooded in. Articles were written. Podcasts dissected the power shift. Liam went dark online. His podcast lost sponsors. Tessa posted a Notes app apology and vanished. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't dance on the ruins. I just walked away. Quietly. Powerfully. Because revenge isn't fire. It's ice. And I'd never felt colder. Or more in control. After the finale aired, I packed my things without drama. No tearful goodbye. No staged closure. Just a suitcase, a hotel key, and the kind of silence that feels like peace. I moved into a small studio apartment in the West Loop. Nothing fancy, just mine. I painted one wall a deep emerald green, like a fresh start. Started waking up early, taking walks, learning to hear my own voice again without waiting for it to be corrected. The first week alone was hard. Not because I missed him, but because I didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. She looked free, but fragile, like a tree that survived a fire. Still standing, but scorched. I took time offline, deleted every photo of us, blocked his number, started therapy, real therapy, just for me. And for the first time, I didn't go to explain someone else. I went to understand myself. My therapist asked me, "When was the last time you felt safe?" I couldn't answer. So I made it my mission to create safety. Routines, boundaries. People who listened without twisting. Friends who didn't ask me to tone it down. One night, I got a DM from a stranger. A woman who'd watched the show and said, "You helped me leave him." I didn't even realize I was being manipulated. I cried, not out of pain, but out of validation. My story had echoed. My silence had spoken. Liam tried to reach out once more. Sent a long email full of excuses. Half regret, half blame. I didn't respond. I archived it. Because closure doesn't come from the person who broke you. It comes from the day you stop needing them to explain why. I started journaling again. Little entries at night. Not about love or heartbreak. but about rediscovery. The taste of hot coffee on a quiet morning. The way my body relaxed when no one was watching it. Tiny joys. Real ones. I walked into a bookstore last month and saw a table labeled Powerful Women. Someone had placed a screenshot of me from the show next to a memoir. I laughed. Not because I felt powerful, but because I remembered when I thought I was weak. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about Liam. It was about the girl who used to think being chosen was the prize. And now she knows. Being free is the real win. They never expected me to walk away this intact. But I did. And every step was mine. Because in the end, the most poetic revenge isn't his downfall. It's my peace.